Hey, this is Marc, Katz, dating coach for smart, strong, successful women and your personal trainer for love. Welcome back to the Love You podcast with Marc, Katz. This is a place that you're going to learn everything you need to know about dating, relationships, sex, and men from a man's point of view. And today we've got a really juicy topic that's bound to be provocative. We'll get into it in a second, but first I want to start with a quote. It's by a guy named John Bowlby, who's been attributed with creating attachment theory. I'm not a social scientist, but we've talked a little bit about attachment theory, childhood attachment theory that overlays itself onto adult relationships. You could be secure, anxious, or avoidant. So he says, "You're only as needy as your unmet needs." Now, I would think that would be a very affirming statement. It would say that if you are feeling needy, there's someone who's not helping you get your needs met. Right? And that's something to call attention to. If you're feeling needy at any given point in time, that could be attributed to someone else's failure to deliver on your needs. There's a problem with that, though, and that assumes that everybody's needs are reasonable and equal. Right? We could theoretically say that anybody who needs anything is always right, and by nature, that can't be right. To me, there is a sweet spot between having needs and being needy. And we need to talk about that. That's really what we're going to explore in today's podcast. Guy wants to have sex with you every day, and that's his need. Is it reasonable if you refuse to have sex with him every single day? Does that mean that you are unreasonable because he has the need to have sex with you every day? There's a guy who says, I need to go out with my friends. I want to go out with my friends 5 nights a week. Those are my needs. Right? So, if you say that's not really cool, are you the needy one for wanting him around more than 1 or 2 nights a week? Is the guy who makes less money than you, right? Who is insecure that you do better than him, and he insists that you quit your job because he feels emasculated by your success. He's needy, right? He needs to be the dominant one. Are his needs reasonable? Right. So usually when we have needs, we think they're reasonable. But when you look at it through another lens, you see that just because someone has needs or has desires doesn't mean they're a bad person. But not all needs are created equal. And sometimes when you have too many needs, an exorbitant amount of needs, you become the needy person. It's very hard to be in a relationship with the needy person. So today I'm going to tell you the story of 2 women in my Love You coaching program. They found nice men. These nice men treated them well. And they've had different experiences with the concept of need versus needy. By the time we're done with this, you're going to know the difference between what needs are reasonable, what needs are unreasonable, and finding the sweet spot that's going to allow you to be in successful, intimate relationships. I'll tell you about that in the second half. The first story I want to tell is of, I always mess these things up because I make up names. We're going to call them Jenny and Marcus. Marcus was a departure from anybody Jenny had dated in the past. She is a bright, successful, sort of type A woman. She's used to type A men. That's what she's attracted to. She's strong. She's attracted to strength. She's opinionated. She likes men with strong opinions. And she finally found, through my Love You coaching, a nice guy who really put her up on a pedestal, treated her well, adored the hell out of her, made her life good. And she saw him for, I think, 6 months. He didn't make as much money. He wasn't as dominant. But he was a good guy at heart, and it was a good relationship. The problem was he was an insecure beta male. He couldn't quite handle her success, and she, to her by her own admission, is a little bit clueless and masculine. Wasn't always able to soften her rough edges and make him feel as important as he needed to feel. Right? Again, she was more a prototypical guy in that regard. She's giving a speech somewhere, accepting an award, and she invites him along for the trip because she wants him there and wants to celebrate with him, and she gives this whole big speech, and this is almost like a cliche. We see this with the Oscars. She gives the whole big speech, and she forgets to thank him. And he wigs out, just completely loses his shit on her. right? Because she didn't acknowledge him in her speech when she was the center of attention. And she had a million things going on. She's the primary breadwinner in her family. She's got 2 kids. I mean, she's got a lot of obligations. And it's not that she didn't love him. It's just she blanked, she forgot. And this guy had a litany of complaints about how she neglected him, how she hurt him, how she how she emasculated him. This guy had been keeping score for 6 months about all of her errors. He was, as Dr. Robert Glover says, Dr. Robert Glover wrote a great book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. Talks about how being nice is a bit of a pathology. Nice guys want to nice their way into women's hearts, and you need to be more than nice in order to be a good partner. So he was a nice guy on the surface, but he had this hidden temper and this deep-seated resentment towards her for being more successful, and she couldn't fulfill all of his needs. He was the needy guy. So when Jenny tried to reconcile, and she owned her piece of it, right? She admitted the things that she did, that she was sometimes too busy, and she was pulled in some different directions, and she wasn't always able to clean the house, and she wasn't always able to approve. She did her piece to own it. Didn't matter. He just lashed out, right? And when you're the anxious person lashing out, that's called protest behavior, right? You're trying to provoke a reaction in the other person. Because you're feeling so insecure, you lash out. And he made her feel really, really guilty. Right? He wouldn't make peace. She was trying to make peace to preserve her 6-month relationship. And through whatever machinations, through the coaching she got, through the Love U community and myself, Jenny dumped Marcus, her nicest boyfriend ever, because he was so needy that nothing she ever did would be good enough. Here's what I wrote to her about this incident. As much as I sympathize with anxious people, it is tiring to date them. Little incidents are writ large. You constantly have to apologize. It's like a reverse sort of gaslighting. Your anxious partner makes you feel like you're a terrible person, even though you're not, and you begin to question yourself. And so, briefly, I had a story like this, wasn't dating a needy guy. I was dating a woman, a very beautiful woman in the early 2000s. We were 3 months into the relationship, and we were going to a friend's wedding, and she wanted to choose the perfect wedding dress. She was very vain. So she wanted to choose the perfect wedding dress. It was on a Sunday, so she couldn't do black. Red was too flashy. White would upstage the bride. She's really obsessing about this wedding dress. She chooses a wedding dress, and it's lavender silk. She looks great. We're the last people to walk into the wedding. We go to the back of the room, and to her horror, as we walk into the back of the room, she's dressed just like the bridesmaids. And so I stifled a laugh because it was funny. She worked so hard to choose this dress, and sure enough, she looked like she was part of the wedding party. She got so upset that I laughed. I mean, what were we going to do? But evidently I was too insensitive. And I'll own that if you feel that I was too insensitive. But her reaction to my insensitivity was that she started to cry, and she stormed out of the wedding. Right, this is a destination wedding. We don't know anybody. She stormed out of the wedding, went back to the hotel room, and I had to leave the wedding and spend 3 hours cajoling her in her room. Right. This is what I mean about having needs that are greater than most people can deliver. It's not that she's wrong, no more than Marcus was wrong for wanting perhaps a more sensitive partner. But at the end of the day, if your sensitivities hijack the relationship so much, it's almost impossible to have a peaceful relationship with you. And this woman, this wasn't an isolated incident. She abandoned me at restaurants. She abandoned me at holiday parties. And it was always the same thing. I would say something wrong that I didn't know was that wrong. She would storm out. I would have to chase her. And that was a level of protest behavior and neediness that ultimately, no matter how attracted to her, what a good person she was inside, I wasn't able to handle. Reasonable people in a couple can agree to disagree. Right? We may not be on the same page, but we could just say, hey, what works for you doesn't always work for me. We'll work around it. It doesn't have to be a fight. It doesn't have to be an I win, you lose. If I want to watch the Jets play on Sunday, my wife is smart to say, it's okay, enjoy your football for 3 hours. If I say I need to watch football on Thursday night, Saturday day, Sunday day, Monday night, right, making myself unavailable to my wife and kids, now I'm being unreasonable. And I think reasonable people could look at these situations and come to similar conclusions. Right? You have to be able to have needs that work with another human being. It can't just be all about your needs. The problem with needy people is that they don't always see the difference. They literally see a guy goes out one night with his friends as evidence that he doesn't really love me. Everything's a big deal. Everything's a potential cause for a fight. So when we come back, I'm going to tell you how to find that sweet spot between having needs and being needy so that you can help create the healthy relationship that you deserve, the one that lasts. My name is Marc Katz. This is Love You Podcast. We will be right back.